In this video, we're going to be talking about a resetting attack. So I have a couple common tools that you've seen before. So these are just CDs. But what's special about these CDs or this little simple thumb drive? What I can do with these are what we call live CDs. So I can take this CD, I can put it into a computer, and I can boot straight into some Linux distribution, so Knoppix or Slacks or Backtrack, or on this one I have DSL Linux. And what I can do from there is I can bypass a lot of the security measures that are put into place by the normal operating system that's put onto a system. So we'll take a look at this one. This is the damn small Linux, and this one is a little more unique. I can either boot straight into it, or I can plug it into a running system and still access the system. So let's take a look at this one real quick, and then we'll talk about another type of reset attack. Okay, so from here I'm going to take our USB drive, and I'm actually going to plug it into my computer. So I'm not sure if you heard that, but so I'll go ahead and plug that drive into my computer, and the computer should recognize the drive. So it's called pen drive. I have it formatted so that I can either boot right into it, or one of the neat little things of this one is I can boot into a virtual machine, or I can boot right into a copy within the normal Windows environment. So it's running. This is the boot process. It'll look the same if you were booting into it, from USB to the skipping the host OS. But I'm actually running in Windows right now, and I'm just booting on top of it. But I can still use this for a reset attack. So I've booted. It gives me my welcome screen. From here I can see some resources. I could go in and look at the drives your DSL install booted. You could go into Xshells, open a terminal, and you could see what's available, or you could look at other disks that are available to mount. If you know your operating system, your disk drive, you could also mount those. But this is just one way that you can use a resetting attack to gain access to something that you shouldn't have access to. So we'll take a look at a live CD next. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and boot to our live CD. So I'm recording this with a regular camera. So what I'm going to do is first take this, excuse the mess here, and I'm just going to pop this CD in. I'll need to take this thumb drive out because this has my bootable damn small Linux. So we'll go ahead and take that out. We will power down the PC. Okay, at this point our computer is turned off. So we just want to power this on. Sorry for the shaky camera work here. Let's see. So we see the boot screen. You can see that it's booting into our live CD. So this is our Knoppix boot screen. To boot, we'll just hit enter. Sorry about the shaky camera work here. So what it's doing at this point is it's going through and it's installing the best drivers that it can for the hardware.
Initiating startup sequence.
Okay. So in these examples, I've actually used a version of Linux with a graphical user interface. For me, these are a lot easier to use, but you may have additional tasks that you might be able to complete booting into a command line only, it may boot a little faster, but again, this isn't too cumbersome for me. So it's booting up. It will be a little slower as it's booting from a CD instead of straight from a hard drive. So I'm on version 7 of Knopic, so this is probably a little bit older version. Sorry to keep moving the camera around. I'm just trying to find the best angle here. Let's see. So from here, I can go in and I can see the folders that are stored on this hard drive. And I can get to stuff that I may not have permissions to get to by default. So my documents that you would normally not be able to get to unless you were logged in as me, you can see you can get right to them here. And then from there, let's find one for maybe this class. From there, I could get in here, and if I so wanted to, I could steal me a version of the syllabus. Let's see. So I'll have to tell it to open in another program. So I'll tell it to open in LibreOffice. It'll go through and it's reading that file, so I can access documents that I shouldn't be able to access. Now with other more powerful Linux distributions, I could boot directly into a password cracking program. If I do that, then when I go to access my system, I would immediately notice that my password's been changed. But if you go through this method, there's really no way that I'll be able to tell. The way to prevent these is to not allow booting from CDs or from USB drives. So yeah, we can see here a copy of the syllabus. So I've been successful at doing a resetting type attack to gain access to system resources that I really should not have had access to. So we'll look at one other type of resetting attack with hardware in just a moment. Okay, so we've talked about the two other types of we talked about resetting attacks with booting into it or booting into a live CD or USB drive. So now I want to show you another way that's probably more effective. So we've kind of talked about previously the problems with WEP, wireless equivalent privacy. So WEP's pretty easily crackable, but what if you're using, WPA2, or let's not even talk about EAP or radius or diameter. But there's a really great tool that you can use to be able to get access to a wireless device or even a hardware router switch. It's a really good tool, and it's one of these. And you're like, oh wow, that looks like a rubber jack, right? I lost plenty of games of pencil break with this, right? Or maybe a little paper clip. So the way that works is we've got one of these. This is probably pretty familiar looking to you. You can probably tell that this is a wireless router. And look, we can figure out what type of wireless router, because it's got the information up here. We can figure out the MAC address and serial number. We don't really need the serial number. Probably don't need the MAC address, but we can figure out a lot of good information just by getting our hands on this. So what does that do for us? Well, it does a little bit, but where we really get the access is, you see this little button? So that is a reset button. So this is where our terminology of reset attack comes from. So I take this really high high-tech security device, jam it in this little hole, hold it down for a couple seconds, and what that does is it resets the configuration on here. And I can say, oh, it's a Linksys, so here's the default IP address and here's the default username and password. I can gain access, do whatever I need to do. The administrator will be able to tell eventually when they're monitoring this that something's changed, but depending on when they're monitoring, how they're monitoring, it may be too late. So that's just another way that you can use a resetting attack to bypass some security controls. So that's why our physical security is also important. So our physical security is important, and then limiting the boot options and limiting, what types of devices you allow to run within your system are all important steps to take when trying to prevent a resetting attack. So hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and sorry for the shaky camera work at times. Thanks.